Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. Come on in and have a seat. My name is Toby, and 1 Million Cups is an educational program here at the Kauffman Center Kauffman Foundation every week, and where we have a couple people get up, do presentations, and then we ask them questions. How many people are here for the first time? Great. Thank you very much for coming. Before we get started, we have other organizers. I'm Toby. This is
Courtney.
I'm Brian.
Britton.
And Milton's not here because his wife's having a baby. So we also have a panel that asks questions of our presenters. So I'm going to have you guys jump up and do a quick introduction. Who are you?
I'm a woman of many names. Just kidding. Hi guys, I'm Melissa Roberts. I'm the marketing director at the Enterprise Center in Johnson County and the Mid-America Angels Investment Network. Shameless plug, we'll be releasing our full schedule of workshops for next year next week, so keep an eye out.
Hi, my name is Wes. I'm the managing director of Beta Blocks. We're a for-equity business incubator in downtown, in the downtown underground. We ended applications yesterday, but I guess we could open them up again for another day. So if anyone wants to get to that, because I won't be looking at them until at least tomorrow. So you can just cheat and send them on in.
All right, well, let's get started with our first presenter, which is Sunny from Vertigo.
All right, thank you, Toby. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here today. It's actually my second time here at 1 Million Cups. I love everything that this platform offers. My name is Sunny Sanwar. I'm the founder of Vertigo. Before I kind of get on with this short presentation here today, I want to talk to you about this little event that's transcribed over this past summer. In this picture, you'll see my co-founder, Curtis Coons. He's on the phone with the customer service at ChargePoint because his all-electric Nissan Leaf, which is a 2% battery, will not accept the port from this charging station. This is north of the river at a Hy-Vee parking lot. Long story short, it took us 4 hours to get out of this situation. And I think it sort of illustrates the problem that some EV owners, electric vehicle owners, and drivers, current or potential, have with driving electric vehicles. They have a limited amount of range, right? You go maybe 80, 100 miles, and then you're down for hours. It's significantly less mileage than you do get with an internal combustion car, a gas car, or a diesel car. And when you're down for hours. It could go up to 12 hours for a Nissan Leaf at level 1 charge. And that's, for most people, not acceptable. The other thing, as the picture showed, even if you do go to a part of town, you actually run into the sparse network of electric vehicle charging stations. If you're in Kansas City, great. You plug in a couple places. If you're in Sibley, Missouri, not so much. So So the other thing is, if you do get there and you happen to have a charge, you see that there's someone already there plugged in for the whole day because they're out running errands. So you don't really know what you're going to find if you do find it. So we asked ourselves, what could we do? We asked the question is how can we address these 4 things, given that these are some of the more widespread barriers to adoption of electric vehicles. So we created this, range extending batteries. What you basically do is you get on your phone, on your app, you look up the kiosks where you could actually rent out fully charged batteries, and you could manually swap them out in a couple minutes, which is very comparable to how you power up in a gasoline car. We are giving the gas station experience to electric vehicles. So to put it in context of everything that is available on the market right now, we have level 1 and level 2 charge, which are basically the plugs that you plug in to an electric vehicle currently, which are very slow, but they're sort of inexpensive, right? I mean, they're just plugs. We have wireless, which is not really any faster, but it's just more expensive, so it's more kind of like a novelty, I guess. And finally, we have the DC fast charge. A lot of people are talking about DC fast charge, but by fast, they mean half an hour for 80% battery charging. Where we want to position ourselves and where we had is this customer sweet spot, as we like to say from all our interviews, is that they want something that's fast, but at the same time also inexpensive, comparable to a level 2 charger. Some of the companies that are already out doing some of the other things, like the level 1s and level 2s and DC fast charging, you can see some of them are pretty diverse industries, like Eaton, they do just power electronics and stuff like that. DC fast charger is one of their things as well. The market for electric vehicle up until now has been pretty small, 300,000 cars in the US alone. That's a statistic from last year. And the good thing about the market, though, is that you could pinpoint the motivated early adopters of electric vehicles. They're EV fanatics, they're part of EV clubs. You know, they have like San Francisco Bay, Nissan Leaf, people in the Bay Area who have Nissan Leafs, and folks like that who we've been in contact with for the past year and a half, kind of trying to develop and make sure the solution we're providing is something that they would want to use. We've also been talking to a lot of commercial fleets that have electric trucks and other folks in the B2B scene where we've tried to approach electric vehicle truck companies, and they've had a sustained interest in the product offering that we're putting out there. We've also had a lot of fruitful conversations with electric vehicle charging networks. So basically now we're in talks with a company out west in the West Coast that have 700 charging ports all across California, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii. We try to partner with folks like this to kind of give their existing electric vehicle customers the ability to kind of swap out and be on their way without having to wait hours and plan their daily trips or schedules. The prospects in the future for electric vehicles really great. As we all know, there's been a lot of public push for vehicle electrification and things of that nature. So we also provided for the gas car equivalent, where you could actually get a better mileage for your gasoline internal combustion engine by using one of the Vertigo packs at a local kiosk. You could also use them for your devices. You could wirelessly charge your devices. You could do golf carts. You could do forklifts and things of that nature, and we've been talking to a bunch of companies like that. The other thing that's really cool, you guys might have heard, Tesla came up with a Powerwall concept this March. We've been working on this for the past 2 years. We have a home storage version where you could actually integrate solar in your rooftop, and that way we address the intermittency that comes with having renewable energy, right? When there's no sun, there's no power. The Vertigo batteries, in effect, stores them for later use. I want to leave you guys with just 2 things. In the beginning of the presentation, I pointed out that range limitation and charging time is a huge problem. Bill Gates once famously said that we'd only need 637 kilobytes of memory. That's all we would need per person ever. Most of the GIFs in this PowerPoint is a lot more than that. What my point is that you cannot expect a product to be mainstream if you give people limits. And that's why we've seen electric vehicles cannot be mass market. And secondly, the charging time. Realistically, if it took 6 hours for me to fuel my gas car, I probably wouldn't have a gas car because it's not just worth it. We'd still be riding horses to work and things of that nature. So the pain point for electric vehicles is what we're trying to solve, and I think we have a pretty good fit with the market. I'll take some questions. Thank you.
All right, I think you did a fabulous job, identifying the problem, and I kind of get the solution, but what I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around right now, out of everything you just talked about in the solution, what of that do you do? And I mean, do you own, are those your little batteries that you make? Are those your charging stations? So you're tackling the whole, we're gonna put little charging station ATVs with little batteries all over the place. So you're just trying to make a multi-billion-dollar company.
Right, so to answer the first part of the question, yes, we are doing all of that because we're doing the power electronics, we're doing the energy storage, the battery packs, the app. We've kind of done most of these things, but to kind of position it to what the whole thing kind of looks like is energy storage is going up all over the place, right? Like states are mandating storage for renewables, and we're actually trying to use that push to kind of get our infrastructure out there. California, for example, 50% renewables by 2030, right? A lot of storage going up, gigawatt hours of storage going up in California. These kiosks are actually going to be part of that plan. So that's the main plan that we're trying to fit. So the battery packs is what we manufacture, the app is what we do, the integration with the car is what we do, and we have partners, we have strategic partners in energy storage and in the automotive side. So.
Yeah, where are you at in the construction of the hardware here? Like, have you built your own kiosks, or people saying yes to putting these kiosks on their commercial properties? And I mean, that's what I'm mostly curious about.
Yeah, so a couple of real estate companies who usually deal with ChargePoint and some of the other some of the other charging stations, they've actually approached us and saying where we are, how could we kind of get that going. But our most attractive feature is the fact that our electric vehicle charging companies have amenities with the site owners where they could put extra stuff that's part of their contract, and they're trying to bring us in through that channel. So.
Yeah, so like pitch me if I'm a gas station, why I would want you. Is it I come and people, they buy chips from me and sodas and stuff? Like, why would I give you space on my gas station?
Yeah, so for those reasons, of course, but the main selling point is we actually arbitrage your peak, off-peak energy, so you actually save on your energy bill, because that's how energy storage works, is that 15 minutes a day, there's a huge surcharge for the utilities. We kind of take that out of the question by charging off-peak and feeding that energy back when you really need it. So because of time, I just presented the EV segment. I didn't kind of go with some of the other moving pieces that we have as part of the business.
So I was curious about this market, and I don't have a lot of industry expertise, so I did a little bit of research. And while I think it's a no-brainer that electric vehicles will be a huge market in the future, right now, everything that I found said they're less than 1% of the auto market in the US, and there's only 6 countries in the world where portable electric vehicles are more than 1% of the market. So my question to you is, are you too early on this curve? What's your go-to-market plan to make sure that you have a long enough runway and traction to get to the point where you can access that huge and growing global market?
Yeah, for just like any startup, we have a very razor-thin focus at this point. We've been, like I said, angling it towards fleets. We do understand the concerns that most people have, especially investors, is that, well, I mean, how big is this market? And it's too much uncertainty. I don't know where this is going. And we understand that, but from a policy or economic standpoint, this is the reason why it is 1%, right? It's one of those kind of chicken and egg conundrums. Like, well, do you lay it out and wait for the market to go, or is this the reason why the market's not going? So even though that's our ultimate goal, like I said here, we're still handling current pain points that some of the fleets have, kind of.
Cool. So your plan is to talk to maybe corporate electric vehicle fleets to get enough traction to get you through that runway?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have on our advisory board, we have the former VP at FedEx for fleets, and he's been kind of in this electrification of vehicles for the last decade. He's been, on the both policy side and the corporate side. So I think we've had a pretty good plan so far on how to deal with this.
All right, let's open it up to questions from the audience.
Great presentation. And you may have solved a problem with electrical cars. The problem I've always heard on the cars is the battery is $5,000 to go buy a new one. Would your batteries be where I could buy 3 or 4 of them and take off and drive to Las Vegas and have the extra batteries sitting in my trunk? Or if I go into the station and trade my batteries out, what's to keep me from stealing 3 of those and taking off for Vegas?
Great question. Yeah, that was one of the first questions everyone kind of internally even asked. Well, to answer the first part of your question, the traction pack, the battery pack that your car comes with, at this point, we're going to try to replace that, of course, because that's a lot of issues with the OEMs. But this is basically a range extender It basically powers, it gives a supplemental juice to your existing pack, so you could make a couple of transfers and be on your way to Vegas. As far as kind of taking these batteries, taking a couple of them and just leaving, well, that's kind of like the business safeguards that we have, kind of like Redbox, right? If you kind of pick up a movie and you leave, you'll get charged. So you basically bought those batteries on your way to Vegas, is what it is. So we're not thinking of retailing it yet, just because of the expenses. We're trying to do the rental model. But if someone were to buy it for their home or something like that, it's $1,000 per battery.
Okay, we have a question here in the center.
Okay, so segueing off Melissa's thing, the 1%, I think that was the dead silence out there is probably very few of us have these. So are there ways that you could get other non-electric vehicle drivers interested, the win-win thing, like maybe put some kiosk at the back of the Walmart parking lot and put in a shuttle so that the rest of us have better parking spaces, or do like a parking spot thing where there's chargers somewhere else and you have a shuttle or thing, something so that it's not just the 1% you're appealing to, but it's everybody else as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing. We've tried that looking at the military side. They have a couple of vehicles that they wanted us to do something like that because they didn't really want the spatial aspect to be a deterrent to their normal flows. The 1%, that's the key market, but we also have to keep in mind that we're giving a boost in mileage to gasoline cars. So it's not only that electric vehicles, less than 1% of the automotive market's benefiting from this. There's also a benefit for gasoline cars, given that there's been more stringent regulations on fuel efficiency from the federal level. This is something that we see has utility in the future.
I have a question in the back along the wall.
Hi, great presentation. I apologize if I missed this portion of it. But part of the reason that you're doing this is renewable energy and to try to be more eco-friendly and that sort of thing. So what is the manufacturing process of the batteries? Because I imagine you have to make a lot of them. So what energy and how is that affecting the environment as far as just producing a mass amount of batteries?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where in order to integrate renewables in a sustained way, you do have to have storage. And to have storage, you have to manufacture batteries, which has rare earth materials. And the fact that if we just look at it from a life cycle analysis, if we just look at the both costs and the degradation caused with the status quo, with no storage and no renewables, just having the grid pump out power to the lines all the time, and we compared that to our solution, it's a no-brainer, because even though there are questions of disposal and stuff like that with batteries or any kind of storage component, we're better off from an emission standpoint, from a performance standpoint, and overall from a cost standpoint. The other part of the question is how we dispose or how we manufacture. We do have a battery storage partner, and they do lithium polymer and all sorts of lithium-based batteries. But at the end of life of the battery, they actually could be used for energy storage at the grid level, right? So it's like at the grid level, you have just a bunch of battery banks. Actually, that's how the Prius battery gets disposed, is utilities actually use it for the second half of its life when it's deeply discharged.
Okay, we got a question here to your right.
So if I'm looking at this from an investor's perspective, my concern is that this appears as though this is kind of a stopgap incremental improvement to an infrastructure that is going to be growing, and as technology improves at the macro level, this product looks like it has a very finite life cycle. So how do you plan on overcoming that in the future? If you want to create this product and milk it and get out, say that. But otherwise, explain how you plan to grow this beyond or grow it with the rest of the industry.
Right. So electric vehicles, like I said, the focus of the startup has been electric vehicles because it's a pain point right now, right? So this is how we plan to enter and try to fill a pain right now. Eventually, we want to be in the energy storage gig. Like our partners have kind of been putting out storage all over the country, globally actually. And this is kind of the future of energy delivery. There's going to be a lot of storage, a lot of integration of renewables, and a lot less grid. And that is not a finite market. That's how things are going to be changing. That's where we are positioned to be.
I have a question here in the middle.
At this point in your process, if you could be put in front of any three people or organizations to have a productive conversation that you think could accelerate the process as you see it thus far, who would those groups or who would those people be?
Great question. I think it would be Ernie at DOE, at the head of US DOE, Elon Musk at Tesla, and Bernie Sanders.
Can you say a little why?
Well, I think from the DOE standpoint, this is basically what three of their research stream is, right? Vehicle electrification, integration of renewables, and energy storage. We're providing something that's as close to the customer as possible, while everything else they've been doing is basic R&D and kind of the underlying physical parameters that they have to work with. So they could be a great partner in kind of moving this forward, kind of refocusing their research and kind of partnering with us in future developments. Elon Musk, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I love what he's doing with pretty much everything, but mostly Tesla. And electric vehicle, a lot of it, I think a lot of it is going to be Tesla-based in the future because of the proposition that they give to folks. Currently, it's really high-end luxury, but in 10 years, I think they're going to be pretty mass market, and this has some utility for him. From Bernie Sanders, I think from, like, I'm not saying that I'm a Sanders guy, but from everything that the country kind of needs to have that shift, would need someone to champion it at the public masses level. So he would kind of be very helpful in complementing the role of DOE from a public standpoint, and also some of the clean tech companies like Tesla.
So now I got a question to your right.
I wanted to follow up on your answer to Grant's question. Did you say, or are you saying that the future of energy delivery is physical delivery of batteries? Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
I was saying, so storage is going to be a very key component of trying to manage the intermittency of renewables and also the changing demand and supply of the grid. So storage, energy storage is one of the key components of future energy delivery, is what I meant.
Okay, and then follow up, how soon, in your opinion, how close do you think we are to it being economically superior or viable to gasoline engines to own an electric car, not just from your product, but from the industry as a whole?
From an industry as a whole, I mean, the point of the presentation was that if it's not convenient, it's not going to work for the industry as a whole, right? So gas is, cheap, it's plentiful. It may not be realistically feasible in the short term, but if in the future, if we actually look at the environmental impact of gas and we make something like this that kind of mirrors the delivery of how you power your vehicles, at that point it becomes close, if not the same. When that is, that's very variable. It depends on a lot of variables at this point. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be seeing a huge competition for gasoline vehicles.
I have a question up front, or are you just stretching?
Okay. I was curious if you had seen the documentary "Who Killed the Electric Car," with such large industry incumbents that are trying to squash ideas like this. Was curious about your thoughts on that, and also about if you're joining in kind of larger coalition to try to raise awareness around that.
Yeah, so back when the documentary was released, of course, the incumbents were very powerful. The players were probably not as well grounded in, on the ground, like at the grassroots level. But I think that has changed significantly in the past few years. I mean, in the last 3 years alone, there's been significant headway in the clean tech region. I'm not too worried about, like the incumbents kind of becoming a threat in the kind of go-to-market strategy, or kind of having them stop adoption in some way. But the value that they propose for a long time has been pretty sustained, has been pretty, like I just said, pretty convincing. but in the end, technology is changing mindsets. People's mindsets is what ultimately is going to have them switch. I mean, there is an inherent switching cost going from gasoline to electric, but we hope that all of us, not just this company or anyone else, they make that pretty common or pretty evident to folks in the future.
Sonny, we got one more question in the back for you.
Hi there. You mentioned the Tesla Powerwall and the integration into homes. I'm curious, to me, in my mind, that would be the easiest way to penetrate the market, being that there's everyone has that need and that use. How do you, why wouldn't you focus more attention towards the home integration? And then how do you integrate with Tesla's push towards getting into homes with the Powerwalls?
Yeah, so it's just a market that's currently opening up. Our partners actually put, a lot more, I think, storage in parts of the West Coast. The thing about storage is, at least for residential homes, it's not as painful as an electric vehicle range anxiety. So even though we do see utility, that wasn't our first market. We went through an accelerator. It's called Clean Tech Open in Redwood City in Silicon Valley, and from all the interviews we've had and all the folks we've talked to, we kind of prioritize the market depending on what kind of things we were hearing from the industry experts. Even though energy storage is going to be critical in the future, you could use it for, arbitrage for your grid power or backup as UPS. It's still not as visible as a pain point, so we didn't really go there first. But that's been in the back of our minds since the very beginning.
So our final question to you is, what can we as a community do to help you?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing, when we go out and we present, we did the Clean Tech Open in Redwood City. We also did the Flow program at Caltech. The first question we get is that, you guys are from Kansas City? So I really, I kind of want the community to be more grounded in doing research that has a social or an environmental impact and kind of get the word out to people. I mean, I would love it if you guys followed Vertigo or, kind of kept in touch with everything that we're doing. I think exciting times are coming up. But other than that, just for networking, for support, and that's it.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Hey, thank you so much, guys.
Okay, so before we get started with announcements, raise your hand if you've been to 1 Million Cups more than 10 times. Put your hand down if you've already received a mug. Brian Ozorsky.
I've got Rudy here. Rudy, have you received a mug?
No, I haven't.
All right. Come stand up. Tell us who you are, what you're doing.
I'm Rudy Metcalfe. I've been coming here for probably 5 years, back when we were in the little bitty room on the other side, and it's always a great time, and I look forward to it.
Great. Great to have you.
Welcome to the Mug Club, Rudy. Please pick up an announcement sheet in the back. There is a couple of holiday events going on. Casey Next is hosting their winter networking event tonight at Cinder Block Brewery. Erie texted us this morning that the Sprint Accelerator, today is the last day of their co-working Wednesday. So if you need a space to work this afternoon, please go over and say hi to them. Tomorrow, Think Big is hosting their Collisions and Coffee tomorrow morning. They are talking about Cisco and the smart city, so probably will be a great talk. And then the Lean Lab is hosting their December happy hour tomorrow at the Sprint Accelerator. Also, I want to bring up, as many of you know, today is Brian Ozorsky's last day as a 1 Million Cups organizer. And so we would just like to thank him for his dedication and support. I mean, I know every week it seems like it's pretty easy. You guys get to come in and just see the presentations going on every week, but there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, so thank you, Brian. I know, he's sad. With that being said, we are looking for 1 Million Cups organizers. We're going to be hosting some kind of maybe after 1 Million Cups on the 6th and then the 13th, kind of just a meet and greet if anybody is interested in learning more and getting to know us. We would love to, I guess, have you. And then today, actually, this space, everybody needs to be out of it by 10, and so Labs is open over after this, so if everybody just wants to move over there and continue their conversations, we would appreciate it. So, that being said, we will get started with our second presentation today. I would like to welcome Ron Barrett with Edison.
Great, I appreciate it. So we're live. Here we go. It's quite a thrill for me to be back in Kansas City. I grew up all the way at 60th and Walnut, and I worked at 61st and Troost in a bicycle shop for many, many years in high school. In 1984, I left my hometown, and I only come back to visit Mom at 28th and Holmes and to eat. A good barbecue, by the way, which is really great. So I've got my friend and colleague, Mr. Richard Bramlett here, and Mr. Richard Bramlett is a PhD student at the University of Kansas. My day job is that of a professor of aerospace engineering. I'm one of 4 people who founded Edison. The chief operating officer and government sales are both 2 gentlemen, both doctorates out of Tennessee. And Bram and I form the technical background in many, many ways. This is essentially my day job. So my day job is centered on missiles, munitions, and UAVs. And so we work on the cutting edge of technology, and I've designed quite a number of weapon systems, air-to-air, air-to-ground, ground-to-ground, hard launch, soft launch, gravity weapons, which are bombs, along with helicopters and different kinds of things. And it's really kind of annoying to work in that world because you can't tell much about it. But we have some really amazing tools that have been developed for these weapon systems. And Bram and I, several years ago, were part of this effort, and we thought, wouldn't it be awesome to apply these techniques and tools to toys? It would be great. So we have some of the world's most advanced toys, in essence, that are based on weapon system technology. This is what we do. We design, develop, test, protect, IP protect, transition to field and market new subscale flying systems. So there are classes of aircraft that are currently not known to the general public and in many parts of the technical public as well. And these are aircraft that are capable of hovering more efficiently than a helicopter, popping up and dashing at missile-type speeds. So most airplanes can't hover, and most helicopters can't dash. And we've managed to do both, which is a really cool thing. These are 2 of the products that we're working on. So the XQ-139 Micro, so this is the Quad Rocket and the Quad Hawk. We've got, but of course, you know, we're located in Lawrence and we're born in the University of Kansas, so we have to have some sort of Jayhawk-looking thing. But these types of aircraft have some really, really unique capabilities, and this is one of the variants of the XQ-139A, clearly decked out in Coast Guard colors. And you can see the shape of it is kind of weird. I mean, you know, if you're thinking of an architect, this is like a flying buttress, you know, for real. And what gives this type of aircraft greater efficiency and hover than a helicopter is you're missing the base drag. Most of the bottoms of helicopters are very bulbous and they're very draggy. This thing can hover about 25% longer than a conventional helicopter. Similarly, when this thing takes off, it hovers around, it's very gust stable, it pitches over and then it flies essentially like a missile, and it can go more efficiently than an airplane because it's missing all of the area of a wing. This thing is capable of significantly higher speeds. This particular variant, the Coast Guard variant, is capable of going up to 150 miles per hour, which means that Bernadette, our chancellor, probably wouldn't smile upon our testing it on campus. So we don't do that. We go out to Smoky Hill Gunnery Range and test that one. This is another variant, and you know, for a city kid growing up in the middle of Kansas City, I am completely unaware of bovine agriculture. But we were approached several months ago to develop an aircraft that would be able to hover over a cow at night, therefore it's black. It would inoculate the cow and mark it with glow-in-the-dark paint. Kind of a neat thing. Yeah, that'd be kind of a cool mission. Why would you want to do that, of course? You know, what do I know about cows? I eat them, that's about it. But it turns out that an average rancher loses 150 pounds per head when the cows are rounded up, they're put in the trucks, they're taken to the lots, they're run through the chutes, and they're vaccinated by a veterinarian. So we would basically be able to do this in the field. We presented these aircraft on Capitol Hill about a month ago, and of course, predictably, some unnamed person with some semi-blank looking nondescript business card said, could you work for the company? I said, yeah, great. So all of the James Bond 007 nightmares, came to mind. If you could do a cow, you could do a person. This is it. So we're trying very hard to stay in the civil world and make these things good. The XQ-139 Micro is also very, very unique. And so for those of us in the aerospace industry, we often are fixated on things that cost tens of millions of dollars. And I met a gentleman a couple years ago, and he says, I'm tired of making tens of things for tens of millions of dollars. I want to make millions of things and make tens of dollars. There's an idea. So as a normally state employee, that was a good idea. So we have the XQ-139 Micro here, and this thing is designed to be more stable than your average quadcopter in many, many ways. If you take a quadcopter out in a normal sort of atmosphere, it gets blown all over the place. This thing tends to pitch into the wind because the center of gravity is at the base of the Jayhawk head, and the aerodynamic center, that's the place where the aerodynamic forces act through, is below that, so it inherently is stable. Bram, you want to try flying it? Okay, so got to have the battery. Batteries help. They do. And the cool thing about this is the batteries are charged by a regular old USB stick. So you can plug this into your computer, and we'll give it a sec to initialize. There's the head. And if it comes at you, it'll hit with the ferocity of a duck bite. So look out. Yes, occasionally Jayhawks do fly. It works pretty well. It's extremely stable. This is more stable by about 50% than a conventional quadcopter of its size. So it was built for the novice pilot. It's built for harassing the dog in the living room. It's built for basically running circuits in your basement, and it can go outdoors as well. It has a range limiting feature in it that means that when it gets more than about 150 feet away, it goes into an auto land mode. So it will just automatically land. You can't get this thing to fly away, which is a problem with a lot of radio controlled aircraft. So you can see it's essentially rock solid stable, and yet it's still capable of very high speed flights. So this thing can go about 25 to 30 miles an hour if you pushed it, which we're not going to do here. Thanks, Bram. Appreciate it. Yay, good flying. So we've combined a number of things, and I think you guys could probably tell that the 11-year-old in this 50-year-old body is still very much alive and well. And it's like I have multiple favorite things. A favorite thing is quadcopter. I love things that fly. I also love rockets. What if you put the two together? I mean, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. It doesn't get any better than that. So we've designed one of the variants of this thing. Now it's hard to see, but this is the world's fastest quadcopter. So it's teeny weeny, and you basically, it's hovering right now. The resolution on the screen isn't good enough to capture it, but Bram is actually flying it. The thing goes up like the ultimate Estes rocket. When it reaches apogee, when it reaches the highest altitude, a parachute does not pop out. Instead, the thing enters a hover, and then it flies down to the ground. It's the coolest thing. So this type of aircraft, we've got a couple of really nice shots of this thing. This one was shot, I think, at 240 frames a second. So there it is. Not quite as impressive as an Apollo aircraft or Apollo spacecraft coming off, but not too bad. And you can see the props start up, and away it goes. And these are all essentially marketing videos that we're putting together. And then this one is 1,000 frames per second. You'll see the ejection plug come out. So the ejection plug, and then the props start to spin as they go. This gives us a unique position in the marketplace in a number of ways. We are, first of all, we're the world's fastest quadcopter. Second of all, we hold both design, or have applied for, design and utility patents on the combination of a rocket and a quadcopter. Currently doesn't exist. So our patent attorneys did a lot of searching on this stuff. So and then the last thing is that this market is currently rather large, and it's predicted only to get larger. A lot of people ask about the stability in outdoor flight. So this is not rocket mode flight, and we were flying outdoors in 8 to 15 knots. That's just under 20 mile an hour gusty winds, and you can see, yeah, it's really nice and stable, and goes back to the same old place. Of course, the table needs a good paint job, that's for sure. One of the cooler things that we came across, Bram came over. This is my humble little Brooksitis looking house, and the indicator lights on this thing are blue, along with the Christmas lights for our house. And we just flew outside, and it looks so cool. It's the most awesome thing. We have a limited production run of this aircraft. Clearly, we're deep into the flight test. We're into tweaking the product for mass production type of techniques. The thing flies very, very well. Unfortunately, our dog, who is back there, is too mellow to be harassed by it. She knows that something's up, but it's just, Ron's behind it somehow. And basically our overall marketing type of niche is riding this wave of quadcopters. So this one, the microcopter, the PQZ, I'm friends with the inventor, Alexander von der Stein of Belgium. He complained to me about 8 years ago that he was about to make too much money, and could he please buy American citizenship? And I said, I could help you with that first problem. Yeah. They went through 11 production runs, the smallest of which was 3.4 million units, and he made €85 off of each one. That's the market I want. And he's still a good friend, by the way, to this day. The military side is alive and well, and that's I would rather not touch that today. We're working on civil applications, and these are basically trends of UAV sales that go up and up and up. Do we have the ability to loft cameras? Yeah, absolutely. We can loft a camera, but that puts us squarely in the privacy debate, which I don't really want to mess with right now. What about the FAA? The FAA, you guys are probably keeping up on the news, just yesterday came out with interpretations of rules, and total gross weight of our aircraft is about 2/3 of an ounce, and so we fall well within the exclusion zone for the FAA. So the FAA will not be involved. Also, the FAA does not regulate indoor spaces. So we're fully legal to fly in here and outdoors as far as the FAA goes. As we all know, uncertainty in regulation is bad for business. So they've got that part locked down. The larger aircraft will be regulated by the FAA, and in many ways, rightly so. Because one of these things, because it's got a military variant, if it goes through the windshield of some car or something like that, then you're done. So we're trying to stick with the initial launch, and we're working very hard to kickstart it with the XQ-139 Micro. We have quite a number of little aircraft over there that you can come and look at, and we can fly some more. But with that, why don't we call it quits, and we'll open up the floor
Great,
for questions.
thank you. I don't know if you saw us doing this, but we were trying to get your rotors to take off there. Thank you for doing that. All right, let's start with our panel.
I guess ladies first this time? Ladies first. Okay. I love the drone-based Christmas lights. It's hilarious. And if you can find a way to get a drone to put up my Christmas lights, I'm 100%
That would be really
on board.
cool. I would buy that.
That's a pain point. But so my question for you is, you have clearly assembled a team with a great deal of scientific and industry expertise. So kudos on that. Can you talk a little bit about the business expertise of the members of your team? Are there anybody who has some significant past exits under their belt?
Yeah, so there's the two members of the business side were up front, and Eric Dobson runs an angel investment group out of Tennessee, and Bob Honey is a former director from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, also in Tennessee. The only challenge that I've got with the business side, and I guess this is being broadcast, but that's all right, is they're trying to draw us to Tennessee, and I like Kansas City and Lawrence, so I'm trying to find a reason to stay, which would be really cool if we could. If they assemble all the financing out of Tennessee and they get the tax breaks, well, we're gone. We're going to Tennessee, which is kind of sad.
Sure. So as you continue to grow, and if you're working with people that are already involved in the investment world, obviously there's a point at which investors become more involved in the day-to-day management of your business, perhaps that have a board seat. And if you're foregoing the largest part of that market to avoid the privacy debate or any kind of military uses or concerns, do you foresee any kind of tension with the board on those issues? If you're kind of
It's natural. It's going to come, and I didn't mean to imply that we're pushing the military side away. We're embracing it, and Bob Honey is working that end. It's just there are so many military uses, and they're so out there and scary that really it's not good to discuss in a public venue. That's why we have only civil stuff for today, which is good, which is very cool.
Sure. So as an entrepreneur, kind of knowing these things are coming down the pike, and maybe this is kind of a more advanced issue that entrepreneurs might deal with on a regular basis, how do you handle kind of planning for a time when you and your investors might be on different sides of an issue? How do you build relationships now? How do you kind of set the groundwork for growing the company in the way that you want to grow it?
Sure. So basically, what you're looking at is between me and Richard, we're basically a pair of lab rats. We're not business people. We're not investors. And if an investor has an idea and he or she wants to take it in that particular direction, hey, pay for a couple more hours so I can go hide in my lab. This is fun. So it's very important for the scientists and engineers of any company to realize that they're not business people. And I got it, I know. But boy, we sure do make some fun things. It's awesome.
Yeah, so do you have a Square account so I could buy one?
Yeah, we're working on a Kickstarter. The Kickstarter, if
No, I mean like right now.
Well, we were specifically lectured that we are not to engage in commerce in this building.
Yeah, there's a parking lot charging my electric vehicle right outside.
It's good. So,
no,
I'll tell you what. I'll tuck one under my coat. So here we go.
Yeah, I got you.
So we got. I mean, you can see the initial production run. We got it, but so as not to blow the was it 501c3 status? We will not engage.
Yeah, okay, I don't know what you're talking about then.
Yeah.
On a more serious note, like what are you going to do first? Let's say you got 100 of these or 500 of these. How the heck are you nerds going to sell these things?
Yeah, no, and I realize the term of endearment. My wife calls me that all the time. But the initial shot is Kickstarter. And then I also work as an expert witness for UAV and toy companies. And what we are going to have to do is harness mass production techniques, sometimes that are offshore. We can get the parts and pieces coming out of Taiwan, Shanghai, Taipei, wherever, get them here, do final assembly here, and then marketing probably from the Kansas City, Lawrence area. So the next step is to go into the high rate production after we get out of the Kickstarter stage.
Have you proven that you know how to sell that many yet, though?
Well, that's where the contacts to Alexander von der Stein come through. And you guys can see, so I'll bet a lot of you actually launched rockets as a kid. And you can see a rocket and a quadcopter. Estes has rockets, Estes has quadcopters. So what we want to do is basically prove ourselves to be such a viable threat to Estes that they have to buy us or infringe on our patents, which would be absolutely great. If we get to that stage, awesome. You are seeing only 2 of 17 inventions that we came up with in the past 4 years. So we actually set a KU record in rate of invention production. The other ones that are coming behind this are even more awesome.
Yeah, great. Everything you said is really good. I strongly urge you to do a smaller production run and prove you know how to sell the stuff. I mean, it's a good problem to have to get your hands on some money or some grants and then figure out a way to make 15,000 of them or whatever, and then have no idea how to sell them. And Kickstarter sometimes is the answer, but almost always isn't. And so as much as I want you to spend, just my parting advice, 50% of your time making stuff and 50% of your time figuring out how to sell it. And, hoping that people infringe upon your patents and Kickstarter are two piss poor answers. But if you guys are smart, you'll figure it out.
All right, let's open it up to the studio audience. Okay,
I have a question up front.
Yep.
Hey, so you're going to enter two markets that are flooded with hardware already. One is the DoD, right? They've been flooded with hardware for like 30 years. There's different markets, sub-markets within the DoD that your airframe is superior in. How exactly are you selling electric vehicles that are going to be faster? They've got the dash capabilities and VTOL capable, et cetera. But with flight times, even though they can cover the distance, how are you supposed to replace something like an Aerosonde, a Scan Eagle, a Raven, a Puma, something like that? Any of those?
It's a different mission, and again, I'm loath to go into the DoD aspects, but we're working with Picatinny Arsenal right now in New Jersey, and you're essentially looking at a mortar replacement. And so the idea is you would have fewer and fewer rounds of ordnance that would be able to do bigger and bigger things with less and less explosive. But,
okay.
Why don't we have a sidebar on, rather than public discussion?
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Well, we'll go to the toy thing then. So you've got a toy market, right, that's exploding right now, and that it's a good time to get into it. What are going to be your differentiators? Obviously, from an aerospace standpoint, it's a far superior airframe, and it's more efficient and all that kind of stuff. But to a kid who doesn't know the difference, is he just banking off it looking cool? Like, what if the little helicopter on the top has little foam rockets and stuff on that? Like, how are you comparing? Are you doing market research? How are you going to sell those things aside from the patent infringements and your hookup with the guy that invented the cool copter on the top?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. So we got a couple of things that will anchor us in the technical community and in the toy market. If you put on the market something that is the fastest, all of a sudden, whoa, you got it. Nobody currently that we know of has combined a rocket and a quadcopter. And we believe we're the first to do that. We haven't found anything online. We haven't found anything in the patent gazettes, nothing in the technical literature. So those two things, what we're hoping is that a small army of 11 to 15-year-olds will beg mom and dad to get them this cool thing. Those are the people that we're trying to get to, is our former delinquent selves, because I'd want to buy one.
Question in the center.
Great presentation. First, just a suggestion in your blurb, include quadcopter, drone, something, because I wasn't excited about the blurb, but I'm really excited about the presentation. Heart of America Boy Scout Council in Kansas City is huge. There's troops all over the place. When someone said launching rockets, the first thing I thought of was give some demos away to local Boy Scout troops, then their fathers see them and word spreads. So have you thought about giving some samples away to organizations like that to get the word out about your product?
Not a bad idea. Right now, the production run is so limited that we're not quite in the stage where we can give away. So we're running on limited investor capital right now. It's not a bad idea. No, I like it. I like it very much. Being a former scout myself, sure, I'd love something like that to show up. Nice thing about the current variant of the aircraft is they're made out of Lexan polycarbonate, which is bulletproof material, and so we have the aircraft that was launched more than 24 times. And if any of you have launched model rockets, you'll know 24 launches on a model rocket, it'll tear it up. But the aircraft is still looking really good, and it works very, very well. So yeah, I like it.
Question in the back.
Again, I've been coming here for 5 years, and these are the first questions I've ever had that I'm excited about. First is Thanksgiving. My grandkids came up, and the day after Thanksgiving, we go out shopping. I bought 3 of these copters. We went home, and they're just having a blast, but what I realized, one remote worked all 3. So when one takes off, we had helicopters everywhere. Can you solve that problem? And then the other question is, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I bought one for my son. We go outside, and like you mentioned, you've got one that does 150 miles an hour. He shot his rocket down the road. We walked a quarter miles down the road, picked it up, shot it back to the house. Can you make that copter that once it goes out of distance, either turn around and come back to you, or when it goes up, when it falls back in your distance, do you get control of it again?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as it is right now, the aircraft that we have, the little micros, have a range limiter. And the range limiter is really important. First of all, you don't get flyaway, because flyaway is a big, big problem. You know, if you're a 9-year-old, last thing in the world you want is for your cool thing to fly away. So when it gets more than a given distance, 100, 150 feet, it goes into this auto land mode, and it's gentle. It just floats right down to the ground. You walk over and you can get it. The aircraft is so small that at 150 feet, even perfect 9, 10, 11-year-old eyes really can't determine the orientation. So it's not intended to fly very far away. The launches will go straight overhead, and then they hover straight down. So we got a lot of this stuff absolutely taken care of. When it comes to making sure that one transmitter is locked to one aircraft, that's called the process of binding. And we have executed binding. So you can have 6, 7, 8 transmitters and 6, 7, 8 aircraft. And we envision Mizzou fans and KU fans and Ottawa fans and everybody have their own little mascots. And of course, Emporia State wants a bumblebee. You know, let's make all that stuff and let's. But let me tell you, negotiating with the trademark people on campuses is harder than all the technical work we've done.
Got a question here to your right.
So there's an ongoing conversation in Kansas City about how to improve our startup community, our business community. And one of the things that I think is important in that is getting inventions out of universities. And so I'm curious if you could talk about your experience doing that at KU, and more specifically, in your opinion, what could have made it easier? What can communities do to make that process better?
No, absolutely right. So, you know, Lawrence, as big as it thinks it is actually a small town, especially with respect to Kansas City. And the idea that an incubator would have more than just a photocopier and a couple of phones, it takes more than that to incubate a company. We need some real support. We need somebody who is actually there, who's going to help. And so right now, you're looking at the technical core of Edison. To transition from the technical core into low-rate production, which is, of course, the prelude to high-rate production, we really need some space, which is going to be important, and not huge amounts. We're looking for 2,000 to 4,000 square feet, and it's, you know, the price has to be right, and hopefully some support. So that's basically what we're looking for right now.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Lawrence is too small to support that anyway.
Thank you so much. Before I let you go, what can we as a community do for you?
Well, in the parking lot, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. No, it's basically spread the word. So we're hoping that these things will appear on store shelves in the next year or two. And, you know, as Kickstarter stuff, they're made in 1s and 2s. They're all handmade. They're not machine made. But they essentially are available on the Kickstarter.
Great. Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but we had a presentation probably a little over a year ago. We still have some streamer hanging in the ceiling up here. So maybe you guys can show off and try to knock that down. So my buddy Lance back here isn't embarrassed every time I mention it when he comes back to visit us. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. Let's hear it for these guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
As mentioned previously, they're going to take all these chairs and set up for a lunch. So we actually, if you want to carry on the conversation, we're going to go through these doors and go out to the labs. So if you want to follow our presenters out that way. Otherwise, thank you for coming. We're off for the next 2 weeks. We'll be back. We'll actually be back next year, January 6th. One other quick comment. The 1 in a Million competition is going to air on KCPT this Friday, December 18th from 8 to 9 p.m. in case you missed that competition. Have a great day. Thank you.